What's going on, fight fans? Gonna be going in depth for the first of the year, the first card of 2025 for UFC. We finally are back in action. To start off the card, we had Nurulo Alaviev versus Joe Selecki, a late replacement for Yanaz Moose, coming in 2 weeks late notice. And pretty much what you expected it to be, which what it was. Grappling, a lot of wrestling heavy, especially for Nurullo Aliyev, having that brother Dagestani inbred style that he has. Getting the first two takedowns in those first two rounds, he completely dominated and had top control in those first two rounds. In the third round, it stayed on the feet for the majority of it. Tit for tat here and there, nothing crazy. And for there, Joe Selecki had some success with the takedown in the final, like 30 seconds in the last round. Got some ground and pound here and there, but all in all, Liev comes out the winner, as he should, dominating most of the fight. Then we move on to the next card, which is Fatima Klein versus Victoria Dudakova. Dudakova really known just for her hands and her boxing, here and there. Sometimes she's decent with the kicks, but her ground game is absolutely terrible. And Fatima Klein again exposed that once more, taking her to the ground in the first round, having that top control, using the ground and pound. And in the second round, just started dominating and devastating her with this nasty ground and pound. Elbow opens her up. As soon as that opens her up, it then gets called off. The first TKO, first KO of the year. We have Fatima Klein over Victoria Dudakova, and she was pissed at her man. Pissed at him. It was very, very funny, especially at the end of that fight. Moving on up the card, we had Magomedov Gazaloyev versus Bruno Lopez, and I swear to God, if you literally switch these guys' names across from each other, that's what you would expected of would have happened in this fight, especially with a guy from being that region of area, being a Magomed himself. You expected Grappler having wrestling heavy, but actually, he's actually known as a kickboxer or stand-up fighter. Had really nice outside low kicks against Bruno Lopez, but Lopez pretty much just dominated him with the clinch wrestling. Got a few takedowns, took top control, had a lot of dominating positions with the grappling and wrestling. And if you would have had his name as Bruno Lopez off, I definitely would have expected that for that to happen. But he comes out with the victorious win for him. Moving on up the card, we had Ernesta Karasheket versus Nicole Caleri. I'm butchering these names, but it doesn't matter. Fight was an absolute banger for women's MMA. These two gals was just swanging and banging all up on each other. Yes, I do mean it like that. Ernesta was really, really great with her boxing. Especially, she was headhunting a lot, had a lot of jabs, had a lot of 1-2s. Her straights were there at all times. Nicole Cavalari, her kickboxing, her low kicks, her outside low kicks was really damaging, but Ernesta really didn't give a damn what was coming her way. She kept on plotting her way forward and try to be able to put on this pressure and pace on Nicole. Nicole, mix it up, had very good moments, especially with the right hand countering in the first round. She tried to be able to get some takedowns in the first round. She had some success, but throughout the entire fight, she was really failing a lot of those takedowns, which really gave Ernesta the time to be able to keep on that pressure, keep throwing a lot of punches, and keep Nicole busy, especially with the pressure that was coming her way. Honestly, it was a very close fight. I could have seen it gone either way. Really, really close fight, but it went to Ernesta Karake. And I mean, I'm not mad at it, but in my opinion, I did think Nicole did put out the dub. Moving up the card, we had Preston Parsons versus Jacob Smith. Jacob Smith, really known for his grappling and wrestling, heavy base type style. That's his base. But he just came out on fire, bro. He was on a mission to prove everybody that, listen, my stand up game is no joke to be taken with, man. And he just put on this this pace on Preston Parsons, just literally trying to just get him out of there like a flamethrower, just really throwing anything heavy. And his technique was actually really, really good for a grappling wrestler type. And he just hit him with this nasty left hook that dropped Preston Parsons bad. Got a tremendous and nice KO. I believe it was his debut for Jacob Smith to get in there, get that first dub on his career in the UFC, and he called out Bilal for the title. I like the confidence. I like the enthusiasm, brother. You continue this streak of what you got, brother, and you may have something on your hands, UFC. Moving up the card, we had Thiago Moises versus Trey Ogden. And I really did not expect this type of performance out of Trey Ogden. Actually, kind of impressed. That first round for him was absolutely impressive. Really just doing whatever he wanted to Thiago Moises on the feet whether it be with the boxing, with the inside low kick, with the kicks. He really looked really good out there. Then in the second round, just gets rocked, gets put down by Thiago Moises with a nice counter right hand that he had. Sits his ass down, dominates then on top, has a lot of top control in that second round, and does the same exact thing in the third round, just having that top control with the grappling. Pretty much just got the win, just being on top of Trey Ogden. Messed up and pretty much, I think, got his bicep torn off the bone. Looks like it. Pretty nasty looking injury for him. Hopefully he can come back and look like how he was looking in that first round. Very, very impressive performance by him. But overall, Thiago Moises comes out with the dub. Moving on up the card, we had Marco Tulio versus Ihor Pretoria. And man, do you just feel bad for Ihor Pretoria, brother. He puts himself, unfortunately, in these unfortunate positions in that first round. It was only in the first round. Unfortunately, not only does another foul occur with a nasty knee right to the groin, disgusting, but another KO loss for your boy Torpe, just getting laid out nasty on the floor. Right hand hurt him, another right hook right on the chin, just completely flats him, and then some ground and pound for Marco, and it was all she wrote for Ihor Pretoria. Hopefully he gets back in the win column, and hopefully just a easy opponent for you, but he needs a layup. Needs a layup. Definitely deserves it because he's putting his chin and his body on the line a lot, and it's definitely getting taken advantage of. Moving up the card, we had, speaking of taking advantage of, the weight bully of all weight bullies, a 6 foot flyweight. Not only not a 6 foot flyweight, but misses the weight. The first two of missing weight in the UFC so far. Jose Johnson versus Felipe Boons. Not really much to be able to say. Not much really happened on the feet. Jose Johnson had a few nice kicks and a few nice kickboxing showing here and there. They get into a scramble, and Felipe Boons then is on the bottom. Then looks for the armbar position, rips it out of his hands, gets a nice armbar submission victory over Jose Johnson. That scumbag that he is, weight bully. Go to a weight division that you deserve to be in, my brother. You are 6 feet tall. You're there's no way you're not at least 155 on fight night, right? Like, let's get it together. Let's do better, and you do better yourself. Moving on up the card, we had Punahele Soriano versus Uros Medic, which was thought to be pretty much the layup for Uros Medic to get, more of a win streak on his record in the UFC. Just gets completely flatlined and gets put out of there. Soriano was with his hair on fire in that first round, just ready to get it and going, not taking any time to really get himself warm. Hits a nice left hook right on the chin of Uros Medic and completely flattens him out on the ground. Nice underdog victory for himself as well. Moving on up the card, we had the prospect killer himself, Christian Rodriguez versus Austin Bashi. Bashi, a prospect with a grappling heavy base style, really likes to put on a nice pace. Comes in, I believe it was his debut in the UFC, and C-Rod coming off the loss against Juliana Rosa was really, really bad look for him, but has great victories over, Cameron Simon. I believe he has a victory over Andre Yanez. So he is a prospect beater and just completely, outdoes Austin Bashi on the feet. In the grappling, it was pretty similar, but Austin Bashi just continued to be able to fail all these takedowns. Didn't see that it was working and was just getting outstruck on the feet pretty easily. Shout out to C-Rod for the dub. And so far, in my opinion, honestly, the war of the year, Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. Wow, what a banger of a fight this was. Honestly, in my opinion, should have been the main event, maybe even the co-main, but whatever. This fight was exactly what you expected it to be. Chris Curtis, thankfully, starts off a lot more faster than what he does usually in most of his fights, getting his boxing up to par where it is, and just continues to tag Roman Kopylov nasty in all of these rounds throughout the entire fight. And Roman Kopylov, being the Terminator that he is, mixing up really well with his great Muay Thai, getting the low kicks that was really chopping Chris Curtis up down low, mixing up the kicks to the body, having some shots to the head with this southpaw or orthodox position that he likes to have, landing nasty right hands over the top against Chris Curtis. In the third round, gets Chris Curtis hurt really, really bad. You can start to see him kind of be out on his feet about it. but it's still staying upright. It's still a close fight. It could go to the scorecards, and it could maybe go to Chris Curtis' way. That's how good of a performance Chris Curtis, in my opinion, had in this fight. Um, but just a nasty, great timed head kick right to the dome, shin on chin for Chris Curtis. Nasty reaction, in my opinion. If he had a different reaction to it, maybe they wouldn't have stopped it. But he was all over the place, flopping like a fish, and they called it off. I mean, there was 1 second left, in the fight. Maybe you don't call it off. Maybe you just let it go to the scorecards. But you don't know what the follow up was going to be from Roman Kopylov. But then again, Kopylov kind of just walked it off and was kind of like, I think I won already. But that, if anything, kind of sealed the victory for him was just that head kick that was just disgusting. So Kopylov still has his name into the rings. Maybe he can be able to push himself in towards the rankings to middleweight this year. Moving on up the card, we had, in my opinion, and what it should be in everybody's opinion, because I am correct about this, the knockout of the year. Cesar Almeida versus Abdul Razak Hassan. Cesar Almeida starts off that first round being tactical, being technical, just trying to get the reads, set the trap, see what Abdul is really doing, and Abdul is just continuously pressing him, just going in with these flurries and being the savage that he is, winging these punches. And while he is doing that, he then lands this straight, I believe, left hand when he switched to southpaw, drops Cesar Almeida, hurts him, but not crazy. They get into a grappling exchange. They start to stand up. Abdul presses this action, tries to get, the KO, which would be a really great KO on his record for Abdul, especially being kind of one of those middleweights that is still just settling around there, not really have any ring to his name. And while he is throwing these haymakers, trying to be able to land, and actually does land on Cesar Almeida on his chin pretty well, again, Cesar Almeida just throws this left hook from hell, lands it straight on the button on the chin, and his chin is on the ground, stiff as a goddamn board, toes curling up and everything, like he was getting a good one out of him, if you know what I mean. What a hellacious KO. KO of the year, 100% for Cesar Almeida. Moving on to the co-main event, we had, honestly, in a lot of people's opinion, what they believe shouldn't have been the co-main event, maybe even the main card opener on this, but we had got Santiago Ponzinibbio and Carlston Harris. And honestly, would you believe that we actually got a high-level fight out of these two guys? In the first round, Carlston Harris is honestly getting pieced up by Santiago Ponzinibbio, landing really nice low kicks, really just taking the sails out of his wind for Carlston Harris. But Carlston Harris stays busy with his boxing, then lands a nasty jab that sends Santiago to the canvas. Then another 1-2 sends Santiago again to the canvas. So he's really, really hurt already in the first round. Really takes over, in my opinion, in that first round. In the second round, Santiago then gets his bearings within him, starts stepping some more takedowns from Carlston, and really is starting to get more into his rhythm, especially with his boxing and kickboxing in general. But while that is happening, he's landing pretty well. And Carlston Harris is still having success. Not really kickboxing, not really throwing a lot of kicks. Starting, actually, in my opinion, starting to mix up a little bit more inside low kicks, using his boxing, starting to throw the left hook to the body, to the head, still landing his 1-2s. But Ponzinibbio, I believe, had a better second round and recuperated very well from having those knockdowns in the first round. And in the third round, it just seemed that Santiago started to land this right hand at will. And while he was landing it at will, the chin of Carlston Harris just started to chip away. Wasn't taking the shots very well at all. Then started to flail around a little bit more, getting the outside low kick, then, getting the leg kicked out of him as well. He's still trying to be able to try to push the space, maybe hurt Santiago again. But then just like 4 consecutive 1-2s lands on Carlston Harris that all of them just stun and wobble him. And finally, Ponzinibbio gets a knockdown. Once he gets the knockdown, looks for the finish, then sends him back up, that being Carlston Harris, and just starts to wail on him again, starts to maybe get his timing and his piecing well, lands another 1-2, ref jumps in, calls the fight off while Carlston is actually throwing a hook. So I think it was kind of an early stoppage in my opinion. Maybe the fight could have been, still been going, but he was hurt. He was already wobbled. He took a lot of punishment throughout the entire fight. That left side of his face, his cheek, his jawbone actually looked like it might have been a little bit fractured or something. His eye was already getting messed up, bleeding out of his face. So I wasn't that mad, but that fight could have honestly still continued. But shout out to Santiago Ponzinibbio getting a victory, getting a TKO victory. Another one on this card for himself to be able to, I guess, feel better about what he's been doing, in his recent fights where he's been very lackluster, has been getting kind of chinned of late a lot. And then moving on to the main event, we had the rematch of Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas. Um, I mean, it was what it was, I guess. I'm just glad it was a finish. A lot of finishes actually on this card. If I counted and tally it up, honestly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 finishes on 14 fights. It's actually really, really good for a fight night card. Usually they're kind of, and especially with all the names being on this card, you didn't really expect it to be that well. But for the main event, in the first round, stayed on the feet. It was what it was. Mackenzie Dern getting the low kicks, getting her kickboxing going. Amanda Ribas just using the boxing, using the jab and the 1-2. Very, very simple. Mackenzie Dern then gets a takedown pretty well. Uses that top control, get that dominant position, pretty much wins the round. Then vice versa in the second round, Amanda Ribas gets the takedown. She gets the top control. She gets the dominant position. Even though Mackenzie Dern, instead of Amanda Ribas, what she was doing and what she should have been doing in the first round, Mackenzie Dern then started to threaten with a lot of submissions from bottom, trying to get the armbar, trying to get the triangle. Try to be able to make Amanda Ribas think a lot more when she's in that top position. And then in the third round, they get into a little bit of scramble, a little bit of a tangle. Not really much to be able to say. And then Mackenzie Dern then gets her top position from Amanda Ribas, where she had some top control in that third round. She then inverts it, then tries to be able to threaten with those submissions, really looking for that armbar, gets some ground and pound in there, then gets the armbar submission. So shout out to Mackenzie Dern. She gets her redemption from that first fight that she had against Amanda Ribas. So yeah, I mean, it was really not much to be able to say. Good ranked victory for her. She can be able to push herself up in the flyweight division even more. So hopefully she can be able to get another big name, but her stand-up is still not the greatest. So when she puts herself against a striker who can be able to stuff some of the takedowns, Mackenzie Dern is still, unfortunately, with that boom that she got, is going to be in some trouble. But so far, so good for the UFC. Not a lot of good names. Some actually good matchmaking and some good fights, honestly, on this card. We got the KO of the year. We got the War of the year so far already. 9 finishes on 14 fights. Again, like I said earlier before, is actually really, really of a high clip. Really good card for them for the UFC. Great way to start off the year. Hopefully it's even better next week for UFC 311. But thank you guys again for watching. Man, this I can't wait for this year. This year is going to be absolutely tremendous for this channel and for UFC. Altogether, we're going to be doing absolutely fantastic. Like this video if you like this video. Comment your opinions on what you think of this card. I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. Not the most entertaining, but again, we got a lot of finishes, and especially for a fight night card, especially with having Dern and Ribas being the headliner and seeing all these names, pretty good. Pretty good. And subscribe, man. Subscribe. Obviously, if you want to be able to continue to see this type of wonderful content showing up on your listings and your subscriptions, I'm here for you guys, and you guys are here for me. We're staying consistent throughout the entirety of this year. Thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.